So if Canada is now in a trade war with the US, will that have any impact on the housing market? Well, let's get into it. Hey guys, my name is Cody Newstater and I'm a realtor here in Winnipeg, and I help buyers, sellers, and investors navigate this tricky market here in Winnipeg. And so whether you're just trying to stay on top of trends or you're looking to make your move, make sure to subscribe so that you know when new updates are coming soon. So before we get into all the details about how the different levers that we could pull will impact the housing market, we need to understand that everything in the housing market is mostly a part of supply and demand. And so while we could pull on these different levers that do have effects on the demand or the supply, they're only changing demand going up or down or supply going up and down. And that includes inflation, immigration, interest rates, housing supply, how much we're building, all that stuff. And so one of the most talked about ones right now is actually immigration. And with the recent changes in immigration, we're actually bringing in less immigrants than we originally were going to, with those numbers being reduced from about 500,000 per year to about 380,000. Now, the effect that that is going to have on the housing market is actually going to be pretty small, mainly because we have the foreign ban in place. So if you're a foreign national moving to Canada, you cannot buy a piece of property. Now, they walked that back a little bit and add some new restrictions or loopholes that you can jump through if you have a work permit, if you filed taxes for long enough or whatever. But for the most part, if you're moving here and you haven't previously lived in Canada, you can't buy a place. And so immigration right now isn't a big factor on the housing market itself. What it affects more is rent prices. Okay, and the effect that rent actually has on the housing market is that as rents go up, it actually prices out more people from being able to buy a house because they can't save up enough money. Now, I understand a lot of people that are renters will be renters for life, but for the most part, there was a general tendency or maybe a natural flow of people who went from renting to owning. And now that seems to be becoming less possible in the Canadian market. And so the government has tried to put in rent controls on certain cities. But the problem is when they build new units, usually these are not subject to rent controls. And with the influx of immigration taking over all these rental units, it only drives up rent prices more, making rent controls very hard to practically implement. And I understand a lot of people will say, you know, investors are causing the supply in the market to be a lot lower. And while that is partially true, that's mainly only true for the big hedge funds or corporations that are buying a lot of properties. Those mom and pop people that own rental properties actually help the market because they're introducing more rental opportunities that aren't just apartments or condos. Okay, so what are the actual factors that go into supply and demand from the Canadian government? Well, for one, the Canadian government does have an impact on the economy. For example, with the tariffs now in place, a lot of people speculate that's going to hurt the economy, which is going to drive the Bank of Canada to lower interest rates. Lower interest rates will mean that there's more people with more buying power, which will raise the prices of homes. Now, at the same time, I understand that when the economy goes down, there's also less people that have the ability to purchase homes, which maybe lowers the demand. Those effects, I don't think quite even out. I actually think the demand is more, and there's more people with more buying power when the interest rates are lower. The other side of that is when economy struggles, there's less builders who could actually take out loans to build more homes. That's part of the reason why they lower interest rates. And so if these builders begin to struggle and they can't build the homes, then supply begins to dwindle. Now, again, these sort of work in the opposite, where if interest rates are low enough that builders can finance more loans and have access to more materials to build more homes, then we're fine. So a lot of the times these builders are also often relying on immigrants to fill the roles for their employees in the construction companies. And so you could see how this all sort of gets intermingled and it just becomes a market is bad or the market is good, when really there's so many factors contributing to the differences in the market.
Okay, so obviously one of the biggest issues we have here in Canada is not the demand of housing, but actually the supply. And the government has a big role in that. Not only have they tried to start initiatives in adding, a housing accelerator fund or changing zoning density laws, but the government actually needs to step in and accelerate both of those things to the point where they actually implement them. It's been a lot of talking about how to increase the supply of homes and less of actually tangible increases that we've actually been able to see in the market. And so one example is those increased zoning laws that allow for a higher density of homes. I think this is something that our culture has actually lost, where we have, these big suburbans with downtowns and then just suburbias that have single family homes. And we've kind of missed out on those 2 to 10 unit buildings that used to house a lot more people. Now we do have some of those that were built in the 1900s and, later into the pre-World War II. But we need more of those to be brought back. Having those not just as apartments or rentals, but actually as parcels of land that you could buy as mixed unit sales, almost like smaller condo buildings, would actually greatly increase the supply of homes while allowing families to actually live within their means and stopping further progression of people buying houses that they can't afford, and then the living costs going up even more.
Now, at the end of the day, does the government have an impact on the housing market? Sure, technically it does. Should that impact your decision on selling or buying or investing? No. Now, obviously, I know interest rates are a huge decision factor in when you're deciding to buy or even sell, really. But at the end of the day, these are big macro factors, and your decision is actually going to depend much more on what the local market in your specific neighborhood that you own your house in is going to be. And so if you're ready to make that next move, or you want to start on your buying or investing journey, reach out to me and let's see if we could find that next property for you.